Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Tom and Mike Thanksgiving Special for 2024. We don't really know what we're doing. We thought we were going to be starting our filming about 2 hours ago, I think.
2 hours, give or take.
We'll probably get into all of our misadventures downstream. We've got some fun things for us to talk about here today. Mike, thanks for joining me here.
And absolutely, thank you for having me.
So what we're going to be cooking today, we've got a Dutch oven chicken recipe that I've never made before, so that should be interesting.
Quite.
We've got a venison chili recipe that I've made many times before, though not outside, so this is different. By the way, we are in northern Wisconsin, beautiful northern Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Grieve farm.
Myself, my family, we are definitely into the outdoors. We're into hunting, hiking, all that kind of good stuff, some fishing too. And well, it's safe to say that a part of it happens right here. So I'm sure we're gonna be getting different angles of this particular spot. But, and of course, before I go any further, big shout out, thank you to Derek behind the camera and not editing it so that it makes it look like we're saying awful mean things about YouTube or something like that. So thank you, Derek. So we got some venison chili coming up, and I'll walk you through the recipe that I use on that. By the way, this is an award-winning recipe. I'm not just facetiously saying that, although I am, but I actually did win a 2017 or 2018 chili cook-off in my office park. Kind of a big deal. So we're gonna be talking our way through that. That's right, that's right. We've got, of course, some cornbread, and we're gonna be ending on a special high note for dessert. Maybe, should that be a surprise?
That can be a surprise.
Okay, that should be a surprise. Safe to say that this is in no small part a homage to the one, the only, the legendary Paul Harrell. We would literally not be here today but for that, and we would also literally not be here making this today but for all of the viewer requests when I kind of threw up the balloon of, would people be interested in this? Should we be doing this? Too many of you said yes. And I think I had a conversation with Mike and went something to the effect of, we're gonna be cooking outside in 30 degrees in November in Wisconsin. And that's where we are.
That sounds like a great idea, Tom. And on this end, I can say that while Tom is an outdoorsman, I once stayed at a Holiday Inn without a dome or a lounge act. So this is entirely new to me. You're also going to see that this is kind of a one-shot deal. We're not doing a whole bunch of takes. We are not in controlled circumstances. This could be very interesting, and if it goes the way our morning went, it'll be very interesting.
Oh yeah.
The purpose in running this, and it's going to be on the longer side, is that if things work out according to plan, you're going to be seeing this on Thanksgiving. Maybe you don't have any family, you want something to be doing at home other than staring at the walls, or perhaps you're hiding from your family. We completely understand. So no matter what, we hope to give you some entertainment, but please understand that this is not professional conditions out here, not controlled conditions, and what happens is going to happen.
Yeah, we've already had a porcupine encounter as part of the morning. A tractor may or may not have been involved with the morning. Someone got towed. More on that later. But yeah, so
it's been a morning.
It's been a morning. Well, actually, that's not fair. It's an afternoon now.
Yeah, we're a couple hours behind. But hopefully by the time you see this video, it's not going to be a few days behind. Well, anyhow.
So we're gonna push through getting some food going, and then while that's cooking, we're gonna have some discussions. For those of you who may not know, I'm an ex-state prosecutor. I started what is now Wisconsin's largest criminal defense law firm. We've got pushing 30 attorneys, most of whom are in our criminal division. A lot of them are also in our family law division, so I know a lot of our clients can definitely relate to the hiding from family and all that kind of good stuff. Our firm has, at any point in time, probably between about 8 to 15 self-defense gun cases. So when we were kind of talking about a few weeks ago about, hey, what are we gonna be talking about in this? Mike kind of wanted to draw on that well. And well, frankly, I'll be honest with you, we've got a concept of what we're gonna be talking about, but it's really gonna be a lot of, frankly, spontaneous, free-flowing discussion. Frankly, a lot of our discussions are that way. I think they always turn out kind of interesting. I'm biased, but a lot of you that I've met in real life who have watched my interviews with Mike, I know agree with that. So I've got high confidence that this is going to turn out.
And on my end, I'm with FFL Expert, and I work with dealers who are either concerned about future trouble with ATF, having the trouble right now, or just want to make sure that all is well. I was once described, and I understand the feds don't like it when I'm described as a fixer, but that's what I essentially try to do to help out.
You're like the wolf from Pulp Fiction.
And in about 10 years, the statute of limitations will have passed.
Fair enough. All right. Well, so without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So what I did was I browned yesterday night because, again, we're cooking 30 degrees here. It's cold. I got a hand warmer. I know that Mike's...
Speaking of that, when I'm not doing anything,
Yeah.
I've got hand warmers in here.
Yeah, this is my hand warmer. So if you see me holding that, that's what that is. So we're going to rinse out because at this point, we've been setting up for...
Over an hour.
Yeah, and there's been a little bit of debris that have fallen from, we've got tamarack trees above us immediately right here. We've got a couple little things that have kind of come around. We've got a nice little natural creek, or if you prefer, a crick in the background here. So if you hear a little natural water flow, you did not leave your wife's yoga machine on or your teenage daughter's yoga machine on or anything like that. That is natural. We'll find out later in post-production whether or not it picked up. And let's see if we can get this thing started here.
I think it's a babbling brook. I've got at least one friend out there who might be watching who is now thinking of his ex-wife, Brooke, babbling, but that's a completely different story, which we're not going to discuss here.
I was about to say, remember that one take stuff we were talking about?
I know. That's why I'm not naming last names or states.
All right.
There we go.
So we're going to start off by getting, and you know, I'm actually deviating slightly from my normal chili recipe. That's okay. It's good to experiment.
So this one's not award-winning?
We're going to find out. You are going to be the judge, and we're going to rope Derek into having some of this as well.
Fair enough.
Hopefully his blood pressure isn't spiking through the roof about being on this side of the camera. But again, for those of you who don't know, Derek is our ever stalwart
genius.
He's the guy that makes everything happen behind the camera.
Genius.
And
he makes us look smart and good.
Yeah, that's a full-time job.
Overtime.
So I just put in 2 cans of tomato sauce. What I was about to say is there's really no favorite tomato sauce I have. I try not to get ones that are super spiced or anything like that because I like to be able to control my own stuff. We're going to throw some tomato juice into this now. And usually what I do towards the end is I'll throw in a little bit of Wondra to thicken it up. But also usually what I do is I cook this for like 15 hours in a slow cooker. We don't have 15 hours of sunlight in northern Wisconsin in November.
I don't know which tree you'd plug it into either.
Yeah, we drove up to my place yesterday night. I'm just using this to already warm up my hands. We drove up yesterday night, or I drove up, we all drove up separately. And now I'm throwing in the venison, and I put a little bit of seasoned salt in the venison, as well as a little bit of minced garlic in there as well. I pretty heavily salt it with Laurie's seasoned salt. My wife makes fun of me for how much salt I use in everything. The stereotypical Tom answer whenever I cook. And my father passed away when I was young, so I was raised by a single working mom. And the result was that you know, in hindsight, kind of with the perspective now of being married with 6 kids as I make a big mess, you know, when you're growing up, you kind of don't know any better why things work the way they work, right? Like what's this division? Boy, the raccoons are gonna be happy tonight. So, and I pretty much started cooking. I took over kind of the household cooking in about, I'd say about 4th grade, plus or minus. and I started experimenting with chili. I remember distinctly in 5th grade, but you don't understand why things work out the way they work out, or necessarily how they work out at that age. But now being a parent and seeing all the laundry and just the endless house chores, and I did other things as a kid too, not just cooking. But it's yeah, I don't know. I've always loved cooking, but cooking outside for me, this is a first-time experience. That's for sure.
I've cooked outside plenty, but I normally don't do it at 30 degrees. So, question for you. I
Yeah.
see you mixing there. What do we need chopped?
So if you want to get going on some chopping, we've got a couple peppers if you want,
Awesome.
and we still have the stickers on them. So just to keep it interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
By the way, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but behind me, I've got this kind of olive green military surplus bag that my wife made fun of me for buying probably about 12 or so years ago now. And it's got this, maybe we'll throw up a B-roll picture of it if you can throw it up right now, Derek. It's got this plastic lining in it. I got it for like $4. It's amazing. I really want to find another one. Just adding a little bit of olive oil to it right now.
Looks like a surplus bag. Military
is.
surplus? What country?
It's some Eastern Bloc. I don't recall.
Yeah,
But,
just like our SKSs.
Yeah. Like one of your favorite songs, Choctaw Bingo, right?
I'm still have people who know me as Uncle Slayton in a few circles.
I mean, I call you Uncle Slayton. So,
You are not the only one.
well, he's cutting up the peppers, so I just add a little bit of olive oil. I'm gonna throw in some chili powder. Again, I pre-measured it because we had to kind of hike a bit to this spot. So for all of our sanity, myself, Mike, and Derek, we try to cut down on the amount of things that we had to carry. So
Pre-measured is a good thing.
yes, a lot less to go wrong.
And how big on these?
I usually make them on the smaller side.
I mean,
But
strips are we talking?
you can do it however you want.
Uh-oh.
That's your knife now. That's your cutting board. That's your pepper. This is your chance to be free. Go with it. I mean, so in true Paul Harrell fashion, we of course are both armed and carrying,
Of course.
and that's not really in true Paul Harrell fashion alone. For those of you who may know both Mike and I, that's also in our fashion. Mike,
Am I in bed? No, I'm carrying.
Mike, do you want to tell the folks what you're carrying today?
I am carrying my old concealed carry piece. It's a little weird doing it open carry style, but this is a G40, Glock Model 40, which is the long slide 10 millimeter.
Now, I know what you're thinking for those of you who know what we're talking about. There's no way he actually concealed carried a Glock 40. Yes, I promise you, this man did. Mike's got 2 versions of concealed carry guns, and if you see me looking at my phone, it's because I'm checking the recipe to make sure I don't goof this up too much. Mike's got 2 ideas when it comes to concealed carry. One is really big, the other is really small. Everything in the meaty middle, not his jam, although you do carry a G26 as I recall.
Now and again, when it comes to times that I'm not really worried about anything, and unfortunately in the work that I do, I often have to worry about things. I will carry a G43 if I'm not worried, and next step will be a G19. And if I start getting worried, I'll step it all the way up to the G40, the 10 mil.
Yeah, that's when things really get spicy for him. Yeah, me from my side, you know, I always used to, so back in another lifetime, I used to compete in IPSC, IDPA, and when I say back in another lifetime, that was...
Many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, almost 20 years ago now. So I'm sure the guys who were winning back then would barely rate now, assuming, you know, you transported them forward to the future. But, well, and for those of you, another way of dating when I did it, So usually the club I used to compete in, there was about probably, I don't know, on average about 50 participants in any given match. And so there were 3 of us who shot Glocks. Everyone else shot 1911s. And they made fun of us Glock guys.
2 world wars.
That's right, 2 world wars. Grass clippings had to layer down, all that kind of stuff. Very real here in Wisconsin and the Midwest. In fact, my very first handgun I ever bought was now keep in mind, I was in college and somewhat broke. But I'm just adding some diced tomatoes right now. I bought a Rock Island 1911 GI for like a couple $100. That thing, it always jammed. And I got the Chip McCormick mags. That was like all the rage back then. Yeah, well, that was a lot of money for a broke college student to be dropping on mags.
I get it.
Did not help. I mean, I tried different ammo, you name it. So I'm not bashing 1911s. I would later go on to get some other 1911s that did work out really well. Although at present, I don't own any.
Really?
None.
Wow.
But I immediately transitioned over from the 1911 world to the Glock world because I didn't have enough money to keep pouring into guns. So I got a stock G17 Gen 3 with the tritium night sights on it. And that was my competition gun for any number of years. Still have that gun too.
Wow.
But yeah, so I was a Glock guy for the longest times. You know, you get used to that grip angle on them. And then that went to G43, then G43X and so forth, and still, you know, G19 on occasion. But and then I found the Langdon Tactical HK P30 SK LEM. So many acronyms there. So the P30 SK, that's the subcompact. It's basically kind of in between like a G26 and a G19 for size. Kind of a nice Goldilocks size. Because I find the G26 to be a bit smallish, the G19 to be a bit largish for ideal concealed carry. It's just a little bit bigger than it needs to be, right? And then the LEM trigger, the law enforcement model trigger, that's the one that is kind of, it's like a half-cocked double action trigger, basically. So that's pretty nice because you basically get a very light stroke. Now, is it a 1911? No, it's not a 1911 for triggers go. But
It shot
it shoots well.
more than your 1911 did at the time.
Yes, that's true. I shoot well with it. I like it. Until I just recently got an HK CC9, which just came out not that long ago, later on this year in 2024. And I bought it. Notice I did not say HK gave me one. I bought it.
We are still not sponsored by HK, any of the others. I don't know. You got to step it up, Tom.
I got to step it up. Yeah, I got to talk to some of those HK guys. But I love that gun. That thing's phenomenal. It feels blocky and weird, but I'm telling you, once you get your hands around it enough, and especially it just points really naturally. And I had another buddy who also bought one, and exact same comments. We were both very surprised for how unnatural and a little bit blocky it felt in the store. It just ran flawlessly, and yeah, so the holsters have to catch up to that, so I'm still CCWing my HKP30 SK LEM from Langdon, and still loving it, so nothing wrong with that, but I'm definitely looking forward to taking a little bit more size and kind of taking it from that compact down to a true kind of micro SIG 365 XL-ish size range.
Fair enough. And on my end, I have just stuck with Glocks. My first one, before Kimber really went downhill, and I'm dating myself quite a bit, was a Kimber Gen 1 versus their Kimber 2. Just a basic, classic custom 5-inch gun. Worked great. From there, Glock Model 30 and 45, and here I am today that cycling between a 43, a 19, or a 40, depending upon what's going on in the world or what threats my tenants have made to me today. And it works out. I haven't really had a long series of multiple different guns. I've just had what works. I don't really modify them. I guess I'm pretty basic and simple.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope, nothing at all. Keep it simple, keep it easy. The more you modify, the more likely it is that something will not work.
Yeah, and I'm not I'm not bashing on Glock. I have,
No.
I mean, we won't go into details, but you know I have, well, more than a few handguns, including more than a few Glocks.
One or two.
Yeah,
One or two.
we'll go with that in case the wife's watching,
Yes.
although
yes.
she knows better. All right, so I just threw in some ground cumin, or cumin if you prefer, C-U-M-I-N, 3 teaspoons. This is something that I really love the flavor of. And I think it's frankly one of kind of the little secret ingredients to this. So check it out. Drop comments down below, by the way, if you try any of this. We're going down to garlic powder. Let's see here if I can find it. 2 teaspoons. All right.
Garlic powder is good.
Garlic powder's good. A little garlic never hurt anyone other than vampires.
Well, sadly, the lady I'm seeing, she does not do well with garlic, onion, and that I've gotten quite an education about allium allergies and how much they really suck.
Allium?
Alliums, which is garlic and onions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's something that is a huge surprise to me, just how much they can affect people.
And if you did not pick that up, we just heard some gunshots way off in the distance. This is northern Wisconsin. That does happen. Hopefully they don't get too close. But, you know, if they do, you can just sight in your G40 on it and kind of walk them in from a distance, right?
Well, you know what else I've got in the truck?
I can go for it if you want to.
Oh, anyhow, I had my stamp clear. For those of you into the NFA world, NFA tax stamps, which is if you want to buy anything fun, you need to hand the government $200, or if you're really lucky, just $5. Well, I handed them $200, and I needed something to do in the hotel room last night, so I brought up my M2HB and started cleaning it on the kitchen table. And that actually worked really well because I wasn't at home and couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, that's just another, well, there's more gunshots.
Yeah.
That one was a little closer.
A little closer. Sounds like somebody is either sighting in their deer rifle or...
Another gunshot.
Yeah,
Hopefully they're sighting in.
hopefully.
That's probably, I don't know, 3 shots now? All right.
Well,
That is public land as we push over there. So it's possible someone's just sighting in.
that or this is going to be the world's most interesting snuff film ever.
That's right. You know, Tom and Mike Thanksgiving special turns Wisconsin.
Who lives, who dies.
Turns some sort of weird Wisconsin Thunderdome, John Wick style.
I prefer to think about it as one of those old specials on like TBS or whatever, where it's some 80s action film and
Yeah, anything Chuck Norris.
whatever works.
Or Steven Seagal. Let's see here. So I just chucked in some sage for those of you paying attention. Or for those of you not paying attention either. That was sage. Now, where is this fella? Or I think I brought this out. This is actually for the chicken recipe. That's when the paprika comes out. So we're going to put a little bit of sugar in.
Again, everything carefully measured prior.
Well, and I sometimes have friends ask me for recipes, and what drives them nuts is I'll usually say I don't really have recipes. I kind of just eyeball it, and I know pretty close what it is. The chili recipe is different, because I actually started from, I should say this chili recipe is different, because I've got different chili recipes. And then I kind of just kept tinkering with it over the years until we got to where we are.
I admire your ability to do that. I am one of those recipe guys. I don't, let's get the, if we're just going to do dumping, get those off of there. Whoops.
That's okay.
For me, it's, I have a recipe, I follow the recipe. Another advantage is that my lady friend does have. Well, she can't do alliums, she can whip together anything with any random ingredients. It's truly astounding, and I'm always in awe of that. I do not have that gift.
Do you want to get some celery going?
Absolutely.
1 cup. So if you want to eyeball 1 cup, that's what we're going to need for that. And then while you do that, I'm going to get some oregano going, 1.5 teaspoons.
And do we have a little bit of water? We still have some soil on the celery.
Yes, we've got a lot of water.
Water is good.
Not to jinx this, but we were talking about what else could go wrong before we turned on the camera. Well, about a half hour before we turned on the camera. And I think Mike made the observation that, well, we are playing with fire in nature. And fortunately, I think Mike also made the observation of the fact that we've got this creek behind us. So I don't know how much of this creek you're picking up. Maybe Derek will B-roll and be able to show a little bit of that to you. But
And there is a fire extinguisher, actually 2 fire extinguishers off camera.
yes. And he's only referring to me being pushed into the fire to roll around as being one of them. So that's good.
There is a lawyer joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, oh, I was setting you up for the alley-oop on that. Mm-hmm. Give the people what they want, right?
Exactly.
So I'm adding some diced onions up. How much was actually my recipe? I know how much it is added. Oh, they really want me to put a lot of onions in there. All right, so old Tom, previous Tom, who wrote this recipe many years ago now, or at least this particular iteration of it, wants about 1.5 cups. So we will do that. Now I know what some of you are going to be wondering. Will they add beans? And I like beans. I used to put beans in my chili. There's 2 problems with beans and chili. One is that my wife and kids are not such big fans of beans. 2 is a fun personal story that I'm about to memorialize on the internet. There's no way this could come back to haunt me. So 5th grade, I made a big batch of chili, much bigger than this. I mean, the pot was probably about yay tall. And this is 8 quarts, and it's about 3/4 full. So we got about 6 quarts in there, I'd figure. So, and I put a lot of beans in there. And when you got a working parent and, you know, whatever I made for my big batch of food on Saturday or Sunday, this is what I ate for breakfast and dinner, breakfast, dinner, breakfast, dinner, until it ran out. So, you know, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I think I probably got to about Wednesday or so. And beans, at least those beans, let's just say they don't agree with the people who need to be close to me, if you follow me on that one.
Gastrointestinal distress.
Yeah, so it was bad enough that the teacher literally moved my desk to the far corner of the classroom, and the principal called my mom and said, "What are you feeding this kid?" So she literally threw it out. She literally threw it out, and that was the end of it. Now, I no longer have that kind of GI reaction to beans, but you know, you go through an experience like that as, what would you be in 5th grade, like 10 years old or something?
12 maybe?
I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I think 12, give or take.
And you know, that leaves an impression on you.
Apparently it left an impression on everybody else around you.
It did, it definitely did. I think they may have had to retire my seat in some of those classrooms. Yeah, that was, I've got more memorable stories about that week, but I didn't know I was making lifetime recipes when I made up that chili batch, but here we are in 2024 talking about 5th grade chili recipes.
5th grade chili recipes, and why Tom did not have the most amazing dating life at that time, I'm going to guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, 5th grade is the awkward eye contact. Well, maybe not for kids these days. I mean,
These days, sure, but I mean, awkward eye contact and then I'm sure that worked.
No, 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 silent but deadly.
Oh,
No, no,
even worse.
No, that's the trademark.
Well, wait, how did they trace it back to you then?
Well, you know, when you're going from class to class and they notice this thing keeps following, as I recall, a girl outed me. It was fifth grade social studies, and we were sitting in these pods of like 3 desks, and yeah, I mean, you can't stop it. It's coming out. So good stuff. Good stuff. So, you know,
I get it.
little bit of fun for you folks there. So we're gonna throw this in now. Hopefully, this is probably gonna have a couple hours of cooking. It's definitely not gonna be all done by a couple hours of cooking, but you know, the flavors are all gonna get to know each other in the pot, as they would say in the office. Boy, you're not an office guy, are you?
No,
the
I
show.
don't have an office.
No, I mean the show, The Office.
Oh, no, I don't even own a working television set. I am envious of people who have the time for that sort of thing. I don't. It's the good and bad side of doing what I do. So Tom will make many references to movies, TV shows, and I just kind of sit there looking like an idiot, which I'm good at. And then he just gets this sad look on his face, and we go from there.
It's a tough cross that I'm on sometimes, but you know, we make it work.
Had to do what you got to do.
It's coming together nicely now. Oh, I'm going to take a picture of this, and you guys can watch me take a picture of this. Mike just chucked in some celery.
Yep.
I'll get that so you can see that in your B-roll later.
Mixy, mixy, mixy.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm gonna do, oh, you know what? We need some pepper. And we need the cayenne pepper too.
Okay, well, here.
That's the cayenne.
Ooh, it's organic. You paid an extra $2 for this.
Walmart.
All right, $1.
I think the whole thing was about $2.50 maybe, give or take.
It's organic. I'm sure, you know, these days especially, a little more.
I'm sure there's some markup somewhere, but it's not like I got it at one of those crunchy stores. So you can obviously do this to taste.
No whole paycheck for you?
No whole paycheck for me.
Fair enough.
Can't even remember last time I went into that store. Although I used to know someone, and you probably know who I'm talking about, but we don't name them, who a little bit on the nuttier side.
Okay, that doesn't really narrow it down, no.
But she and her husband are just kind of perpetually broke. And
Still not narrowing it down.
they always would shop at Whole Paycheck, and like just perpetual credit card debt, and but you know, they had to spend $8 on a bag of whatever, you know, as opposed to $1.90 something at Wally World.
Is this the one who is in a similar career field, or is this the one who...
The other one.
Oh, whose name sounds like a drink.
Yes.
Okay. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
When I said crazy, that well goes very deep there.
Oh, that's all the way to the center of the earth.
Yeah.
There's hot magma popping up daily.
That is a deep well of crazy.
3 drink minimum.
Yeah. Let's see here. So I got the salt in there. I need 1 teaspoon of black pepper.
Haven't heard from them in a long time.
They just had another kid.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, nothing like having kids to make your life more simple and solidified and
That's right.
stable.
Yes, restful, peaceful, calm.
Nothing bad will come of this.
I always go back and forth between those 2 studies I've always read out there, and people who watch the channel know that I read a lot of studies. And
Tom is a voracious reader.
one of them was surveying people in hospice. And they were saying, well, what are your regrets? And like the top 3 regrets are pretty much always the same, which is I wish I worked less. I wish I spent more time with my family, and I wish I had more kids. Like those are kind of, in no particular order, those are the three you always see. And then separately, another study, which was who are the happiest people in their 30s and 40s? The people with kids or without kids?
Everything I've read says without.
Exactly, yes, without. And that's not a knock on my kids or anything like that.
Tom is a family man. If nothing else in this world, he is a family man.
So, and also, I have a little bit of the streak of the absent-minded professor. This is me, our lid. I've got a bunch of plates, because the lid I brought does not work. Would just plop all the way down. So I just kind of eyeballed it, and it's just, it couldn't be any larger without working.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
Close, but no cigar.
Yes. So, as we mentioned before, this is my first time cooking with this. I'm wondering.
Oh, we've just been gassing the woods. There's no fire there whatsoever.
Going back to the one take, if you didn't believe us before, now you do. I'm like, why is this not warm? So that must have blown out at some point. There is some wind. Part of the reason why we chose this particular filming location, we're a little bit protected. There's some conifers around here. There's obviously woods on all sides, but we're a little bit protected from the wind. I think the wind's about 15 miles per hour today with gusts, according to my weather app, gusts of up to 25 to 30, but we're pretty sheltered in here. Normally you put this up, and I know someone has probably already commented that. The problem is that this doesn't all fit when we do that. So I'm sure it's gonna go out again, and it is what it is. So
We'll just have to keep an eye on it.
right.
Yes.
All right. Well, should we get the charcoal briquettes going?
I think it is time to light the charcoal.
All right, take it away.
All right. Okay. So let's get the charcoal started. And actually, this is the Thanksgiving special, so supposed to tell you a few stories and anecdotes about things. Before we start the charcoal, a couple of caveats, disclaimers, and yeah buts. I think we've already discussed it's a little wet here, and you're going to see a pretty interesting outtake at some point in the video proving that. But just so you're aware, there's plenty of water behind me, plenty of water in front of me, and just on the other side of this bag is a nice red fire extinguisher. The forest is safe. So, actually on that part of disclaimers, hey Tom, question for you.
Yep.
What is the statute of limitations in general?
In general, it's about 6 years.
6 years? I can tell this story. All right. Actually, since I'm the fixer and the rule is the fixer never gets his hands dirty, could you please pull out some of the charcoal, smaller pieces, and put it into this thing?
Boy.
And while he's doing the actual work, I'll start telling you about my second best gun show.
And this is like legit charcoal you've got here too. This is not...
It is very legitimate charcoal. This is, no, inside.
Oh, you want it inside? Okay.
Inside.
Oh, I see. You're really keeping your hands clean here.
Yes, I am, and hire an attorney, what do you get? They don't even know where to put the charcoal. So, my second best gun show. A lot of years ago, I was sharing a table with two other SOTs, Class 2 manufacturers. So there's me, Class 2 number 1, and Class 2 number 2. I'm not going to name any names because this man just told me 6 years on a statute of limitations and he doesn't even know where to put the charcoal. So, okay, we're there. One of the guys is recently divorced. One of the guys is in a very happy marriage, but he has no idea what's coming. And then there's me, who's perennially single. Guy number 1, who's recently, he'd been divorced a bit actually. He had this talent of going to bars, this is a family channel, and he would meet dancers. And I'm not talking about the ballroom type. And I don't know how this worked, but he always got them to come home with him. He was just a genius that way. Well, we go to the gun show. He walks in with someone, I'm going to say, she probably has a stage name. I'll leave it there. Whatever. We're talking, nice enough. I mean, don't get me wrong. Open her mouth, you'd hear all the air getting sucked in. She loved puppies. She enjoyed the oranges that he had. And I just knew not to ask a lot of questions. Then the announcement went out, show opens in 5 minutes to the unwashed masses. Okay. I turn around, look at her, and she went from dress completely normal to something that would have made people on Miami Beach blush. We are talking barely their top, barely their bottom. Okay, this is different, but let's go with it. Well, it turned out that this was genius. People are flocking to the table. She would pick up something like the worst, rattiest piece of some parts kit, start talking about how it was used by Tojo in World War I, and people would pay 20 bucks for this thing. We were selling stuff hand over fist, and we were selling it all at ridiculous prices. I mean, at one point she picked up like a slotted spoon or something, told somebody it was like a part of, I don't even know what, and got it sold for 10 bucks. It was a miracle. The other thing is that in front of our table, we had this, like a support beam for the building we were in. And the tables were easily 4 abreast wide. You could walk 4 men abreast, no problem. Plenty of room not to hit the pole. And I think you know where this is going. I'm talking with SOT number 2. We look, there's a guy coming down the aisle. You know, how much you want to put on him? No, I'm not making that bet. And just as you would think, wham, right into the pole. Guy across from us had tripods out. MG42 was relatively cheap at that time, 34. Any of those, and maybe at that time, less than $100. And to our YouTube overlords, this is easily a 20-year-ago anecdote. Nothing here is for sale. We are not trying to break your rules. And I think we're pretty good on the charcoal now. Thank you.
So my hands are dirty enough for what you're saying.
Yes, your hands are dirty enough. This works. Well, just as everything is going right, we are all looking at completely selling out of everything. The gun show promoter's wife comes over. And again, names are being withheld to protect the guilty. She goes off. I can see her, you know what, through that. This is awful. This is a family show. We can't have this. This is a gun show. We're making money. We have paid for our tables in the first, less than 10 minutes. This is stupendous. Why are you complaining? Well, it ends with, if she doesn't get her clothes back on, we're all out. We're banned for life. And at that point, we go into a huddle. Well, do we go to the promoter? Do we try to pit the promoter against his wife? I think the promoter would be into her. Well, that went back and forth, and we all realized that we wanted to keep being able to attend this show in the future. And that's the story of my second best gun show and how the gun show promoter's wife made our stripper put her pants back on. But you know what? It worked and it was a good time. We sold out of most everything we had, and I got to watch 8 guys trip and fall over.
I think that's the only time I've ever heard of a story where a stripper was getting so much money that she had to put her clothes back on.
I mean, I've heard of stories of people yelling, "Put it on, put it on!" But this was not quite that.
Yeah, this was not that.
Anyhow, this is random crinkle paper. Crinkle paper burns, and one of the problems today is that we really don't have as many newspapers that we subscribe to. That newspapers, at least the good ones, are getting to be about $5 each. So I used some of the old packing paper that I had laying around. And actually this may be enough So let's see if we can get this lit. If it'll stay in there. Or if the wind won't put it out.
And just to further keep on breaking the fourth wall, I'm gonna cross back over there and make sure the chili's not burning.
That is a good idea. And it looks like our crinkle paper, whoops, is crinkling. We're gonna watch as I burn my hand off. And this looks pretty good.
Well, welcome back. So Mike's got the charcoal going. I took about 4 hours to try to scrape down my hands so that they're not as black and charcoaly as they were. And we're ready to roll the next step. So we're gonna get our chicken going in the Dutch oven while the briquettes or they're not briquettes, but while the charcoal is warming up.
And I have to say, you do a fine job getting your hands dirty. I can see why you've excelled as a lawyer.
I knew the kick was coming. I knew it was coming. It was, you know, compliment, kick. So
Happy to help.
yeah. Okay, and I checked. So just again, real world complications. So the lowest setting on the grill that won't go out with the wind
Is too hot.
is going to burn the chili. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulsing it to bring it up to kind of a low simmer and then turning it back off, you know, lots of stirring, all that other kind of stuff. So
Very putsy.
very putsy, but
Such is life.
yes, that is definitely a such as life moment. So
All right.
what we can do is if you want to get some cutting going on the carrots,
Can do.
we need 4 carrots chopped. I'll take care of the mushrooms.
He's a good lawyer. Well, show the camera. Come on. He'll take care of the mushrooms.
I'll take care of the mushrooms. All right, mushrooms are done. I don't know what's taking you so long.
I'm Polish, Tom.
Well, I wasn't going to tell people that out loud, okay? You know,
It's okay.
we'll just, you know, bottom third that. It's okay, he's Polish.
I'm used to it.
While you're doing that, let's get some other things going here. So, I'm going to move
How many carrots?
4.
Okay, 4 carrots can be done.
Let's see here.
I didn't know they made carrots this thin.
That's what they had at Wally World yesterday.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, the raccoons will definitely like us. Whatever animal comes out here, and how thick, how thin?
To taste.
Very good. Whatever animal comes out here tonight is going to have a feast.
So, I've got a trail camera not even 100 yards in that direction, in the direction of the charcoal. And Derek and I were spinning through, just kind of rinsing out some of the loose leaf debris that got in there. Derek and I were, although maybe it's extra flavor, I don't know. We're flipping through it, and I can't tell you how many bears and coyotes we saw on that. So, you know, when we're talking about wildlife outdoors, yeah, I'm not saying this is Alaska or Montana because that wouldn't be accurate, but nor is this Chicago.
Well, that, and you also have at least, what, 1, maybe 2 wolf packs that are active in this property?
There's one, although I have not seen them in some time. The neighbors, so everybody lives on about 40 to 80 acres, although this property is a little larger than that. But there's apparently a lone wolf that's been going around, is what the neighbors have been reportedly seeing. And if you go back about 10, 15 years, there used to be a cougar living,
The tavern down the way?
not that cougar. There used to be a cougar living maybe about half mile, quarter mile west of here. I used to have a neighbor who was a really good guy, who unfortunately passed away in his mid-80s from cancer, but he used to tell stories about that cougar. So, all right, I'm assuming he meant it was an animal. We're just gonna go with that.
This is a family show, as you've tried to tell me many times.
Yes, yes, although maybe since you teased the people with saying that that was your second best gun show story, maybe if you're willing, and depending on how there's some sort of animal calling off in the distance over there. If you want to, you can try going into your all-time best gun show story. But
Oh, God.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people are ready for it. We may have to put up a rated R disclaimer here. Okay, so we got chicken. I need to get some garlic powder out.
It's not really R-rated. It's just times have changed, and I don't want you getting a ton of complaints. Things have changed. And, well, we also need to grease the pan, though.
Well, all right, we can do that.
Yeah, we should do that.
I can rinse that out. I just started putting
No,
some garlic
don't
powder.
rinse. But we do need to grease the pan, otherwise this is going to burn on in epic fashion.
Going full margarine here, it looks like.
Yes, and this is something that Paul Harrell talked about in his videos. Yes, butter is better. Yes, there's a molecule of difference between this and some sort of plastic. It's still better for greasing the pans. And since that's my Dutch oven and I'm going to have to take it home and clean it after this, we're greasing the pan.
Please, someone turn him holding in that margarine up into some sort of meme for me.
It wouldn't be the first time I made into a meme, and it won't be the last.
I could be wrong on this, and I'm sure that I will be viciously corrected in the comment field, but I'm going to go out on a limb. Wasn't margarine invented by Napoleon's army so that they could have butter while campaigning? Does that sound right to you? I didn't show prep this. This is just, I don't know. Another fun margarine fact, this one you probably are aware of. It's illegal in Wisconsin to offer margarine without offering butter.
Well, margarine used to be illegal in Wisconsin, period. It was one of the few things we can honestly say that was legal in Illinois, but illegal in Wisconsin. And in the, I think it was 40s and 50s, I remember my grandparents told me stories about doing, at that time, oleo runs. And why not just get the butter? Well, it was illegal. The government said, well, we shouldn't have this, so therefore we want it. Which oddly works for a lot of things in life.
You mean the government does always know best?
What a concept.
What a concept, right? Decentralized programming, decentralized decision making.
Yes. And this...
that's not a right-left thing, that's just a thing.
Yeah. And this seems like a lot, but one thing I remember Paul constantly saying was, you know, just when you think that you've greased it enough, you probably haven't. So what we're going to do here is just continue greasing away, and either this is going to work great, or you and I are going to have a very interesting evening. But whatever, just makes it more interesting.
And while you're being interesting there, I'm going to check to see how the chili's doing. And I think it's ready for another heat pulse.
Good. Okay, and I think that's enough. And where are those paper towels?
Those paper towels will be right here.
Wonderful.
You got it?
That'll do. All right.
There we go.
Yeah, this is going to end one of two ways. It's either going to be absolutely delicious, or you're all going to get a really good laugh at us. Either way, happy Thanksgiving.
Since we skipped lunch and it's now pushing 2 o'clock now on our time, I think it's going to taste really good no matter what we do by the time we get to the eating part. So,
It's always good going down. It's coming out that can get more interesting.
all right. So, if you're happy with your greasing over there,
It's greased.
it's greased. Okay, and I'm happy that the heat's going again. I heard what sounded like twigs snapping over there.
And that is not. That tells me that the charcoal is doing well.
Yes, yes, I can see the heat coming off the top of it. It's about maybe 20, 30 feet.
To my left.
Yeah, so that's what I was looking at before. But it sounded like leaves or twigs snapping, and up north, that's definitely something you want to pay attention to when you're out in the woods. So, okay. And let's be clear here, just so people don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that wolves and bears are trying to attack us or anything like that. They are, by and large, far more afraid of us. But there's always that non-zero chance.
Non-zero chance, sick one,
Right.
something like that. And you've been stalked on your own property. I remember that phone call. So there is a reason we both have 10 millimeters out here.
Yes.
Is it likely? No, not at all. Would it be foolish not to? Yes, yes it would.
Yes. My, so the wife and I bought this property, I don't know, about 5 years ago now, I want to say.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, and so I'm just putting in about 2 teaspoons of salt in. And so someone who lives a little west of us, I was telling Derek this story yesterday night. You know, she's a church lady, and I am 0% saying that to attack her. For those of you who don't know, I double majored. One of my majors was in theology, so I'm saying that with reverence when I call her a church lady. She's in her 70s, widowed some years ago, and a lot of her social life revolves around what happens at her parish.
Congregation.
Yes. So she, she brought over some like a gift basket of fresh fruits and this and that. When we bought the place, and she's sitting down on our couch, and she's kind of this. Well, she's not big, broad-shouldered. Let's put it that way. She's not going to be confused for an East German swimmer, and she's kind of looking at us, and we're from outside Milwaukee, so that may as well be Chicago to some of these people up here, and that's a 4-letter word in case you don't know. And she kind of looking us up and down. She says, "Well, do you guys own some guns?" "Yep, we own some guns." "Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. Do you carry them around with you when you leave the house?" Yep, we do that." Okay, that's good. That's good. "Yeah, I wouldn't leave the house unless you have a gun with you in the woods out here, especially if it's nighttime or dawn or dusk. Definitely don't want to be doing that." I'm overdoing it on the accent because that's all I know how to do, but you get the idea. Even the church lady, and we got lectured by every single person we met up here as soon as they found out that we had just come up here, that you don't go into the woods without a gun. So I thought that was interesting because that was not the talk I was expecting to get from the church lady. The church lady, who's very much not a gun person, but very much, oh yeah, your charcoal's really going now.
Go. Oh my.
Yeah, that's going.
That is really going. I have actually never used one of those charcoal starters. I admit that I'm one of those lazy people who just spray it with charcoal fluid, throw a match on it, and call it a day. That is very impressive.
Yeah, that is working.
Yeah.
I didn't know how that was going to work either, but that is
extremely impressive.
That is hauling, for those of you who cannot see that because it's off camera.
Yes, I'm almost concerned that there won't be any charcoal left by the time we need it. So what else do we need to do? We've got our carrots.
I can throw some stuff in here if you want to go tend to that.
I'm going to go check
Yeah,
on
why don't
that
you go tend to
before it
that?
starts that tree on fire. Be right back.
Okay, so while Mike is busy not having an arrest warrant put out by Smokey the Bear, let's keep rolling and throwing some stuff in there. So we got our garlic powder in there, we got some salt. Now we need 1 teaspoon of paprika. So as I mentioned before, I've never made this chicken recipe. So I chose it because it looks really good when I saw the pictures of it. Of course, our mileage may vary. And also it came from a website called the Oregonian or Oregonian, I don't know. I'm butchering it, but bottom line is it came from an Oregon, and that's where Paul is from. So I stumbled on the recipe, it had really good reviews, and then I noticed where it came from. I'm like, well, let's roll with that. So we have. Okay, so we have 1
And we
teaspoon.
got to read the story of the lady's 3rd grade teacher as well while we were trying to find the actual recipe.
Yes, I was complaining to Mike about the fact that anytime you try to open or you try to look up a recipe these days, they always have like a full page description of background and setting and context, and I'm sure they do that for lots of reasons. Maybe it's SEO, maybe it's just to make you feel like it's special or whatnot, but it's a Peter Griffin grinding my gears moment when I've got to just continuously scroll down, and you're looking at 50 million ads that of course they serve up, which I'm sure is also no small part of why they do that. Just gonna check on the chili again. How we doing? Ooh, it's looking good. That's gonna be delicious. All right, so that's rolling along. I'm excited about that. My wife's not a huge chili person, so it's not something I find myself kind of making all that often, because there's really no such thing as making single serving chili.
I've never heard of that. Single serving chili, I mean, that's a legitimate business idea, but no, I've never heard of that either.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's canned chili, and I'm yet to find one that I really like, so.
This is true.
All right, so we're gonna put a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, black pepper, and now we need 3 tablespoons of avocado oil. Now I had to buy avocado oil.
Well, aren't we just hippie and trippy today?
That's right. Well, again, Oregon, right?
This is true. Question, do we need celery for this? I can start chopping that.
We do not need celery.
Ah, wonderful.
If you'd like, you can chop the mushrooms, but you don't have to. I know
You
that
did a fine
I
job.
gaslighted you into thinking I finished it, but
No, fine job, fine job.
3 tablespoons, okay. And we're gonna use, I'm just checking. So one thing you always have to keep in mind, particularly if you're in a situation where you don't really have a great ability to clean things. Now here we've got paper towels and water. We can actually clean things a lot. But I wanna make sure I do all my dry things first. So if I had to measure out flour or salt or something using a tablespoon, I don't wanna be using the avocado oil first. So force a habit to go through and to check out before I get a measuring implement wet, particularly with an oil, is there anything else I'm going to need to use it for? And there is, but it's another wet thing, so I don't really care. And again, we also do have the ability to clean it. All right, so we're going to do 3 tablespoons of avocado oil. Now I do like avocados. Never had avocado oil, at least not that I know of. I'm sure I've had it at, someplace or other.
It has a very high smoking temperature from what I understand, and that's one of the things it's most useful for.
High smoking temperature in that it doesn't smoke until the temperature gets really high?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Well, that's interesting.
Probably a bad way to describe that, but yes, that's my understanding of avocado oil.
All right, so we've got the avocado oil. Do you want to go ahead and throw in the carrots?
Absolutely.
So another thing that I always like to do whenever I'm putting a recipe together for the first time is, inevitably you've got in my case, I have it on my phone, of kind of the order that you do things in. And I try to make sure I stick to that order so I don't forget things. And you also notice, for those of you who may not be cooks out there, as I use ingredients, I'm removing it from the table and I'm putting it away. I'm putting it on this little off table off to the side. And that way I don't, it's a clue to myself that I already used that, so don't use it again.
And frankly, just like reloading, gunsmithing, anything else, you want a clean workspace. No different here.
Clean workspace, absolutely. But it's just those life hacks that you learn. You know, if you got something heavy and you're gonna have to move it twice, you know, don't put it on the ground if you can put it on someplace else that's easier to lift from. You know, it's just part of getting older. You learn that kind of stuff a lot more.
Huh. I never would have thought of that.
Really?
Nope.
Huh. Yeah, no.
Thank you. I've learned something new today.
There you go. There you go. Let's see here. 4 carrots. Okay, so we need more onion. We're just going to put the rest of this guy in.
Onion is good.
Yeah, onion goes really well in everything. It's, you know, they say fat is flavor in cooking. Well, onion is flavor too, I think.
I agree.
Leeks are another thing that can be a little secret weapon when you're cooking things. You can usually pick it up in your grocery store.
Don't think I've ever had leeks.
Yeah, well, you probably have. If you go to a restaurant, yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we need 1 1/4 cups of chicken broth. These recipes always tell you to get the low sodium, so I feel like, you know, families, they either have, I'm going to quadruple check, even I know the answer. Yes, is 1/4, so I need 5 of these. 1, 2,
Lawyers
3,
are not the best at math.
4,
You told me that.
5. I use it as an excuse to cover up for my mistakes, but I will run with it, that's for sure.
I just admit I'm stupid.
One of my first, so my first job when I was in college was, worked at a hobby store for minimum wage. And that was basically everything from cashier to cleaning the bathrooms, you name it. And then I moved to a warehouse job. Yada, yada, yada. This ends with me being a junior and a senior, running my own test prep, just like a tutor, for statistics, calculus, chemistry, physics, which is a shame because I also had to learn then a lot of the stuff that I kind of dragged my feet on learning when I was in school. So I got decent grades, don't get me wrong, folks, but no one would confuse my grades as being a valedictorian, that's for sure.
Well, seemed to have worked out in the end.
All right, 1/4 cup flour. Again, pre-measured flour. That's done. The probable cause bag is now off, although it's still a little probable cause-y there, but you know.
Basically what he's saying is that if you do have a bag of pre-measured flour and a little bit's left, do not just throw it on the passenger seat and then take a ride, especially if you're going to speed.
Yeah. Remember, kids, don't break 2 laws at once.
Only one.
Only one at a time. Because if you break 2 laws, then they pull you over for speeding, and then
There's a bonus round.
there's a bonus round when they search the car. So we need 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard.
Yeah, that's one thing. Having done a lot of out-of-state gun shows, I can tell you that driving across the country hauling a vehicle full of guns, it can be interesting at times, and you get to really understand the whole watching to make sure that there's no pretext for getting pulled over. You can be 100% legal. It's still nerve-wracking. On the other hand, that's also how I made money getting pulled over, because police buy things too. I think I told you about that.
This doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, coming back from a show out west, I think this is the year that I had bought a 82 millimeter mortar, and I picked up a base plate at the show. My car was so overfull that I actually had to lower the seats, jam my coat into the center of the mortar base plate, and ride home sitting on that. But I got into a toll booth on the turnpike in Oklahoma, I-44. Next thing I know, I've got cherries and berries lit up behind me. And you know that when you get that question from the police, do you know why I pulled you over? They are actively looking for you to admit something, like, oh, I was speeding. And they've got you. And in most cases, you kind of know why you've gotten pulled over, but of course you say, why no? I have no idea why I've been pulled over. Well, in this case, I truly didn't. And what he had me on was not signaling when I went between lanes in the toll booth. Okay, you got me. And I remember he then started asking a bunch of other questions, and it basically came down that this was a pretext for drug interdiction. I-44, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth. One of the questions, do you have any guns in the vehicle? And I remember looking at him and saying, probably more than your whole department. And he said, son, I'm not being funny. And I said, officer, neither am I. And I handed him my business card. And he looked, Class 3? Yes. Do you have a Serbu? And I said, the Super Shorty? Yes. I said, yeah, I've got one in the trunk. I'd like to see it. Oh? They open doors. And this is true. Anytime you have a 6-inch 12 gauge, it'll open a door. So here I am, we're calling it under investigation. Open up my trunk, had to dig around, whip out a 6-inch 12 gauge, and he's sitting there on the side of the turnpike, just kind of sighting, looking down it. How much? And I said, well, that's my sample that I put out when I do a show, but I pulled out the price. And then he went back to his cruiser, whipped out a checkbook, and that's the first and only time I've ever made money getting pulled over.
So you played the old Uno Reverso card, huh?
Unintentionally. Of course, he still had to have his dog sniff around to make sure I wasn't hauling anything else, but that went as well as could be, and I made money getting pulled over.
Fair is fair, I suppose. Well, we've got everything in there. I added some thyme leaves. I added the Dijon mustard.
Added the chicken.
Added the chicken. And I think we're ready for that concoction to start to the oven part of the Dutch.
This sounds good. I would say we should probably stir it up first, and then off we go.
All right.
All right, time to get this chicken on the grill, I guess. But before we go any further with this, I'm really impressed. I've seen these charcoal starters, never thought much of them, always used lighter fluid. And then I saw Paul in his videos always use one. And if you could tell from the way it looked when it started, it was brand new. And this is amazing. Just how well these really work. I had no idea. It was enough that Tom had commented that I had actually lost some of the charcoal. It had gone up that well. So I put some more in and it's already started. So we're going to begin just how Paul always did by dumping out a few coals. And, oof, that was not good. So, okay, don't stare right into it. And I am going to use the holder as a grabber. Not the appropriate use, but it works. Put these back in so that they can continue. And grab this, and let's go ahead and get the Dutch oven on.
It's right on top?
Yeah, right on top. And I assume we're going to need a few more than that, but that's fine. Set this down, set these down, both down.
Yeah, it's a bake at 400 recipe for what it's worth.
Well,
so bring the thunder.
Bring the thunder.
We're gonna need more charcoal.
Yes,
that
yes,
thing
we
probably
will.
cooks through about a third of the charcoal.
Easily, if not more.
Should I just throw more in there?
Not yet. But soon. And these already have a start, so they can go in the bottom. Let's go ahead and add some more. All right.
We're not afraid of the big ones now, right?
No, not anymore. Start getting some fresh paper for the bottom ready. And actually, we're going to need the lighter again for this paper.
And while Mike is busy, you know, tanking charcoal backwash to the face, I'll graciously get my hands dirty and we'll kind of consider that even.
All right.
There's already a fire going in
already
there. Yeah,
started.
it's already going.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Wow, yeah.
All right.
It's also handy for keeping warm. In between scenes while we were reloading and Mike was letting his dog pee, Derek and I were both kind of huddling around this for warmth. So we have warmed up to the 40s, but
It's one of those days with a really heavy moisture in the air.
yeah.
There's a chill.
it's a lot colder than it should be for this.
Yes. God bless these heating packets.
Yes.
All right, well, this is starting, and we'll get more charcoal on this once this is ready. Let's take a look at the chili. All right, we came back. We may or may not have done something off camera, and let's try that chili.
All right, so we're gonna do some globs in here. In that bowl.
And we'll see if the Grieve winning recipe is all that it's cracked up to be.
Well, I'll tell you the secret: starvation.
This is true. None of us have eaten in a few hours.
7 hours?
A few hours.
Few hours, yeah.
So let's try this out. And you can already see the steam coming off of it, so you know it's actually gotten colder since we started.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Burning the mouth.
Burning the mouth, but this is good. It could be the 7 hours. I'm willing to say that it might well be the 7 hours, but this is really good.
Yeah, that cumin really, really helps.
Is that the secret?
It's one of the secrets. Starvation being the other one.
Fair enough.
So normally I cook this for, you know, I'll make the ingredients overnight and then it'll slow cook all the way to the following evening, so about 24 hours. And then I play with the settings and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, not everything will have be done in here, but you should get the idea of where it's going.
The onion is fine. The carrot is fine. The celery has some crunch to it, but it's not, there's no problem at all.
I mean the pepper, because the carrot was the chicken dish.
Excuse me, you are correct.
Just so we don't mess up the good folks out there.
Something tells me that they're more interested in just us looking like buffoons.
Well, they came to the right place. Yeah, celery needs a few more hours.
Celery does, but overall, this is excellent.
Yeah, that works out.
That definitely works out.
So I'll put that recipe down below. Tom's famous chili recipe. Let me know how it works out for you.
Go to the comments section.
Go to the comments section. Let me know how it works out for you. So you had asked me when we were kind of talking, I don't know, a couple weeks ago about what the heck were we talking about for a few hours.
We talk about a lot of things for a few hours.
Right, and that's part of the reason why I wasn't concerned and the reason why this is so incredibly unscripted. But you would ask me a question that I thought was kind of a good one, and it's so good, the squirrel's chiming in, which was, okay, so you're representing 8 to 15 people in self-defense cases at any point in time.
And I think that should be repeated. Grieve Law is handling 8 to 15 self-defense cases at a time. This is not something where he gets 4 or 5 a year.
No, it's definitely not 4 or 5 a year.
Excuse me. Good cumin.
Need some Coca-Cola to wash that down?
Not right now.
Not right yet? Okay. So you'd ask me basically what are the ways people keep getting into trouble? Because maybe the audience wants to hear that.
Maybe they can learn from it.
To be honest, I can't recall if I did a video about that. Maybe if I didn't, I should. Coke?
Yes, please.
Okay. I mean, I got the flour. You could bump a line of enriched flour.
I'll be driving soon. Can't have that.
Can't have that. Walking around with like flour, you know, and on your mustache and up the sides of your nose.
Yep. Well, we had that discussion when I had, wearing Janko jeans, and while I wasn't doing it, I certainly saw people with dollar bills hanging out their nose.
Huh.
But go on.
So what are some ways that good people who don't live in rough neighborhoods, because a lot of people are not fortunate enough and they, for one reason or another, they work in or they live in rough neighborhoods, in which case, yeah, it's pretty easy to see where that could come from for you, right? But for good people who they're fortunate enough to not be in those circumstances, what's their path to becoming a client? What's their path to having to call 911 because they had to pull out their
Sidearm.
their concealed carry, their whatever it was in order to protect themselves or their family?
What leads to the self-defense incident that leads to your office doors?
Without a doubt. So I talked to a couple of my attorneys first. So as I mentioned before, we've got upwards of 30 attorneys. I think we have 18 on the criminal end. So I talked to a couple of my top people who see a lot of these cases as well. Without a doubt, number one, hands down, driving in the car.
Road
Most
rage?
likely way. Road rage, yes.
Really?
Yes. Someone cuts off you, you cut off someone, someone's driving crazy, and you're feeling understandably quite threatened, and you decide to pull out a firearm, not to point, I mean, virtually never to point, let alone shoot. But that's what happens is, predictably, every single time, the bad guy will call 911 and say, Mike was just pointing, or that guy was just pointing a gun at me.
These plates, ABC 123, pulled a gun, pulled a gun on me.
Yeah.
Even though they are often the aggressor. The
Yes.
race to the police is real.
The race to 911 is extraordinarily real. And what will happen is the police will show up, they'll question you, and they're going to do some sort of internal monologue or among each other that looks like this. Well, he says he didn't point the gun at the other guy, but he did acknowledge he had a gun. So they both agree he had a gun and he didn't have a gun. And he says he pointed it at him. He denies that. Arrest them all, let the DA sort it out. So that's what happens. And then you get to, so if you've heard of the defensive practice of medicine before, defensive practice of medicine being you come on in and you've got a headache or you've got, let's say, a chest pain, right? Every emergency room in the country is going to work up a chest pain like it could be a cardiac event because they can't afford not to, not only for your health, but they also can't afford not to.
Litigation.
Exactly. For lawyers ruin everything, right?
We've established this.
Well established.
Yes.
So you get the defensive practice of medicine where doctors are just going to over-test everything because they want to make sure that they don't miss something. They don't miss that 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 chance that you could have something serious that could kill you. They want to make sure that they catch it, even though in a lot of other places they might just kind of look at you and bless you and say, yeah, you're good to go, right? Defensive practice of medicine, they're going to look at everything. Same thing happens for very similar reasons, defensive practice of law, where, well, what you're going to have happen is the cops don't want to be the ones to say, look, we're not the ones that making the call. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but many times they frankly lack the discretion. They have to turn in the reports about the incident. That's going to go to the shift sergeant or the supervisor, whoever it's going to be. And then the top brass says, look, anytime there's a gun involved or maybe there's a kid involved or something else like that, it's just going up to the DA's office. We're not going to be the ones to take the heat in case something goes wrong. So off it goes to the DA's office. The DA's office then gets into the defensive practice of law where they say, look, I don't know what happened here, but if this guy driving his car 123 ABC license plate actually is driving around pointing guns at people, we have to get him charged. Because invariably what's going to happen as part of bail is you're going to have a restriction against possessing firearms. So it's kind of a backdoor way of taking down your ability to possess firearms during the pendency of that case in court, which very frequently is 6 months, a year, something like that, plus or minus, depending upon where you are. And then of course, even if you beat the rap and you get all the charges dismissed, you can't beat the ride because now you had to hire an attorney, probably, well, hopefully a good one is the one that you can afford, who gets you a fantastic outcome, but that's going to cost you a good amount of money, right? So even if you win, you lose is effectively what happens. And even if you did everything according to what your concealed carry instructor told you was right, of look, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, I was trying to de-escalate the situation. True, you ended the kinetic encounter or the potential kinetic encounter between you and this other individual. But you have to understand that you're always playing in two encounters at the same time. One is the kinetic encounter right there at the scene, which is divided into two subparts. The first one is the one involving the bad guy, the aggressor. The second one is involving the police to make sure that they don't shoot you thinking you're the bad guy or a bad guy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the kinetic encounter. But separately, we're also living in this other dimension, which is very all too real, which is also a use of force dimension, and that's the legal process. You have to survive the legal encounter. And the reason why I call that use of force is because if you don't go along with what the judges and the cops and the police and everyone are telling you, do you think they're just going to say, "Bah, we tried"? No.
No, that's when doors get kicked in.
Doors get kicked in, you go to jail, your house goes away. The situation goes from bad to worse to just simply awful, right? So the use of law is absolutely a use of force situation, and you need to remember that sometimes what will win the kinetic encounter will win the kinetic encounter, but you are likely inflicting damage on yourself in the legal encounter. Another perfect example of this, you know what I'm going to say?
Oh, yes. Warning shots.
Warning shots. Classic example. I'm going to take a moment to think, but I'm not sure I can recall a warning shot case which did not end. Okay, I can think of one case. All right, with the exception of one case, but that just goes to prove the point, right? With the one exception of dealing with someone who was probably on drugs, there was, warning shots will successfully terminate and end the kinetic encounter at the expense of the legal encounter. Because what will invariably happen is this: the prosecutor is going to basically roll a catch-22 on you. And the catch-22 is going to look as follows. Well, any discharge of a firearm constitutes a use of force. You can only use force, even if it's not at the person, even if it's in the air, in the ground, whatever, right? Any use of force can only happen if you're privileged due to facing unreasonable fear of death,
Grave
imminently,
bodily harm, injury, death.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in that situation, then you certainly don't have the luxury of taking a warning shot.
You just would have shot the person.
Exactly. So this is kind of the circle that they wind up doing here of, well, obviously you weren't in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm because you didn't shoot the guy. You shot up, you shot this way, you shot that way. Mm-hmm. And just around and around and around you go. So I always tell people, look, don't warning shot.
That is exactly what I was told when I became a licensed CCW instructor in Arizona. Warning shots are illegal. If you fire a warning shot, clearly you weren't in danger of grave imminent bodily harm, injury, or death, because otherwise you would have shot the aggressor.
Right.
It was, to me, it still drives me nuts today, but it's reality.
And that's the key. Neither you or I are saying this is the way things ought to be.
We're just saying it's the way they are.
If I was the prosecutor, I would be giving good, ordinary folks who are simply trying to stay alive in their home, in their car, in the street, in their business, wherever, an extraordinary amount of latitude and grace to employ any reasonable means necessary. And my definition of reasonable might have a little bit more latitude and elasticity to it than some of these anti-gun prosecutors out there.
There's a reason why we're unelectable.
Yeah.
Circling back to well, I have to circle to two things. The first is the question, and then the second is I need to do a quick check on our chicken. But with the road rage, have you encountered any situations where dash cams were helpful, rear-facing and or front-facing?
So in
and
general,
I'm listening. Just have to
you're
go
going
check
over.
our chicken.
So in general, I would say that the last 20 years, really ever since the TV show Cops, there's been a bias and a false premise that's been created for lots of folks that everything's always being recorded all the time, which is a degree of true depending on where you live. But, and I'm gonna directly answer his question in just a moment. My point is this: very often we think, oh, if I'm in a suburban area, if I'm in an urban area, there's cameras, I'll be covered, everybody will be able to see that I was the good guy. I cannot tell you how many times these cameras are broken, do not work, are so low resolution that they're of hardly any good. They over-record themselves in 24 hours, and believe it or not, it's, depending upon your state's laws and jurisdiction issues, it can be extraordinarily difficult to get your hands on this. Typically what will happen is, if the cops are aware of it, they'll just grab it, and then we don't have it as part of the investigation until either they've decided to not charge you, or they've gone ahead and charged you, and we may get it as part of discovery. So I would say that in general, yeah, of course, dash cams, body cams, all this kind of stuff can be phenomenal. Security cameras, but very frequently they do not capture the entire encounter. They lack audio. They're coming from an angle that can distort depth perception. Maybe somebody was a lot closer, a lot more threatening than how they look in a blurry, low grain, black and white footage or something like that. Or they missed something because the bad guy was just at the edge of the camera and they were just off the field of vision. As far as my cases and good guys having been involved with things, I've had situations where Ring doorbells have been used. We had one reasonably well known on YouTube. We defended a Lyft driver who had one of those forward-facing, rearward-facing cameras, and you watched him get stuck up by the bad guys. Obviously, that helped. But by and large, I would say not so much. I would say that the people who are so vigilant and security conscious that they have gone through all the extra labor to get these cameras to do all these sorts of things, unless lightning strikes, which absolutely does happen, these tend not to be the people who are positioning themselves in places of risk that they are more likely to become clients. And that's not throwing stones at clients. That's just saying it is what it is. Of the people who tend to live in the fringe locations or they work in the fringe locations are probably not affluent enough to be investing a crap load of money into upgrading this, into putting cameras, into doing all this other kind of stuff. I would say the vast majority of the people who encounter this tend to be working class, the middle class, and the thought of dropping potentially thousands of dollars on cameras, training, and everything else is just not realistic. It's not entirely in the cards. And also keep in mind too, cameras, even if it happens on camera, as I just alluded to before, but to bring it back again, especially those Ring doorbell cameras, they can have very blurred fields of depth, and it's very difficult to tell
Distances.
and as a result, what was truly, how things hit in reality versus how it hit on the camera. And the problem is that no one's going to listen to what happened in reality when you've got the camera.
In addition, those cameras are outdoors, and if there was a rain recently, or if it's raining at the time, snow, fog, a lot of them I've found don't see through the weather. One unfortunate incident, and this video I know has aired on the channel, when my manager was murdered. The camera system was dismantled and taken by the police. To this day, I do not have not just the hard drive, but the whole computer it was hooked up to. As far as I know, that is sitting in the state evidence locker in Madison, and I don't ever expect to see it again. And then the cameras themselves, quality ones that have and I am not a computer person. My idea of turning on a computer is offering it an upgrade and putting on Barry Manilow is going to be along the level of just the graininess and how poor, especially a lot of the home ones are. The ones I have, I've gotten compliments on when they've had been used by the police. Unfortunately, on Halloween, as you know, I had another gunshot incident at one of my properties. But thankfully, because of the quality of the cameras, the police can tell exactly what occurred.
Right. I am very mindful of the fact in Wisconsin of what chains of gas stations, namely Quick Trip, have amazing cameras. And
not cheap.
Not cheap.
No.
No, they are not cheap. But, you know, that's an example of, look, I'm very fortunate at this stage in my life to not be living in places that are sketchy or sketchy adjacent. But just the same, yeah, the fact that Quick Trip, for instance, has amazing camera technology and they can see everything, is that somewhere in my layers of thought about where I go to choose a gas station? Yeah. Is it pretty low? Yeah. But it's on the radar. It's on the board somewhere. So I'd say that driving cars is a big one. I would say that going to events and going to places where you're putting yourself and knowingly putting yourself in a higher risk environment is another big one. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be mindful of what you're doing.
My old man had always said, don't do stupid things with stupid people at stupid times for stupid reasons. And that was certainly, I don't know that modern parenting teaches that necessarily, but there's a lot of wisdom to that.
Right. Nothing good happens after 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Something along, yeah, one of those lines.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. So I would say that those are two easy ones where, look, if someone's harassing you on the freeway, someone's harassing you on the interstate or something like that, hang the next turn, jump off, jump back on. You're going to lose a minute, 2 minutes, something like that.
Even if you lose 10 minutes, it's nothing compared to the costs involved if it goes sideways.
And the problem is that that's not fair to you. And I know that. I'm not suggesting that that's fair to you. But there's a non-zero chance that if you allowed this crazy fool to continue their crazy dance with you, it's going to end up with you talking to someone like me. And you don't want to be doing that, at least not when there's large sums of money being involved here.
We're not saying it's right, we are saying it's reality. And that's really the biggest takeaway is, no, life isn't fair. No, you should be able to handle the situation. Yes, that's a fantasy, it's not reality.
Right. Yeah, so I think that that's a couple easy ones. Obviously, things in sketchy neighborhoods or sketchy neighborhood adjacent is a huge increased likelihood chance. I mean, the amount of most of the self-defense gun cases we have that come from suburban counties tend to come from road rage sort of cases. That's a pretty steady truism, I would say. Most of the ones when you push into major metropolitan areas are people being attacked by the wrong element, and they have to defend themselves. There's a big jump down as far as frequency that we see once you go through both of those, but I have to just premise this with the fact that the vast majority of self-defense firearm cases, the police are not involved in at all.
No one ever gets called?
No one ever gets called. So back in 2013, President Obama commissioned the Center for Disease Control to do a study on about how many times are firearms used defensively in America. And the CDC, among other things, did a survey of the existing literature and studies that are out there. And basically the literature and studies said that there's somewhere between 500,000 to 3 million defensive firearm uses in America every single year. Now,
I'm surprised it's that low, unfortunately.
I mean, there's an absurd amount of just home break-ins and all that kind of stuff too.
True.
But, again, this is not evenly distributed. You're more than 4 times as likely to be involved in a violent force-on-force encounter in a major metropolitan area than you are in the suburbs or rural areas. Obviously, rural areas can and do have major issues when it comes to firearm-related suicide, but the statistics are very heavily skewed if we're talking about bad guy using gun against good guy. That we're talking about a major metropolitan area. We're talking about a city with a population of greater than 500,000. And this is not what Tom Grieve says. This is the FBI statistics. So don't shoot the messenger if you don't like that. And also don't read anything more into it than what I just said. Like, these are the statistics. But what I was going to say earlier was the fact that I've talked to any number of people. I mean, I literally could not count who have been involved in defensive force encounters. And when I say defensive force, I'm ranging from something happened, I produced a firearm, but I didn't point it at anyone. So something like that, all the way through shots fired, body in the ground, right? So the full spectrum of there's been a firearm involved and an aggressor-victim sort of situation going on. I can't tell you how many times I've been involved where the police were not called. This is particularly true when you get to major metropolitan areas because there's just cultures of not calling the police. It will not be healthy for you to be the person who's known who calls 911 on your block, street, neighborhood.
And I can verify that having worked in a lot of those areas, doing what I do.
Right. So it's a different culture, it's a different mindset, it's a different mentality.
It's a different reality.
It is. It is a completely, it's right there, but it's unless you've dealt with it in some way, shape, form, or fashion, you have no idea both how different it is and how real it is. And I don't fault the people for not calling 911 either. I mean, police showing up at your place, walking in with a bunch of squads to your house, and everybody's watching this happen, and you're not leaving in handcuffs. It's like, oh, what did he do? You know, who did he snitch on, right? So I get it. I've talked to any number of those people and talked them through the pros and cons of reporting versus not reporting, and I try to say anecdotally, conservatively, 3/4 choose not to report. If they didn't call it in right then and there, and they're from rough neighborhoods, they're not choosing to call it in later.
Based on my own personal experience housing many of those people, 3/4 is probably a small number. I would argue 4/5 or more, but we're still in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
It's when there's a problem, it's going to be street justice. And
Yes.
that's a whole nother video.
That's a whole other video, and sometimes that can be a lot, well, usually that's a lot tougher than someone getting probation or some jail time.
Comparatively speaking, prison time is easier than a lot of street justice.
For those of you who don't know, by the way, because the media and Hollywood uses these terms interchangeably, when a professional refers to jail time versus prison time, there's 3 words. If you're behind bars, that's incarceration. If you're behind bars for less than 1 year, you're probably at the county jail. This is where misdemeanors, this is where you are while you're awaiting your trial and all that kind of stuff. That's jail. So even if you're convicted and the judge says, I'm sentencing you to 1 year jail, you're serving that probably at the county level jail. However, you go down in felonies, you're getting greater than 1 year, you're going to prison. Which
Armed robberies, homicides.
Rapes, all that kind of stuff. So now you're going to prison. That's organized at the state level. So your state probably has likely one women's prison and probably, a handful of men's, ranging from maximum security to low security and so forth. And they'll triage the individuals to where they should go based on a variety of different factors. So
Certain special needs having their own places.
right,
Yeah,
right. So Hollywood uses those terms interchangeably,
and they are not.
they are extraordinarily different, right? So they are, both jail and prison are a form of incarceration. So incarceration is the
You're not
catch-all
free to
term.
leave.
Yes, yes.
And you are a guest of some government for a time.
Right. And then of course, this is all exists at both the state level, that's the jails and prisons, and then there's also federal issues and tribal issues and all sorts of other stuff as well. So I'd say that after you get through those, road rage in suburbia, and you get through making stupid decisions, or just frankly existing, going about your business in sketchy or sketchy adjacent neighborhoods, that is anecdotally, I'm going to say 90% of the defensive gun use cases and calls that we see and we get. Just right there. Right, those three.
Road rage, bad luck, and stupid people, stupid times, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That's it. I mean, again, could you be the unlucky person who gets the home invasion? Sure. I can tell you that if that happens, based on my experience, both as an ex-state prosecutor as well as a defense attorney, odds are pretty good that there's multiple people involved in it. There's probably a getaway guy in the car. There's probably one person going into the home, one person at the door, window, or point of entry. Sometimes there's two that go in. Sometimes there's 4 people involved total. That's a pretty typical, that's what happens. Typically, if a homeowner is encountered, we know according to FBI statistics, about 92% of the time the bad guys flee. That fits with my own experience with the justice system by far. If force is encountered and the good guy has a firearm, regardless of whether or not they ever shoot it, the simple knowledge that they are in possession of a firearm, 92% of the time the bad guys run away. About 6% of the time you have to use the firearm, and about 2% of the time they surrender. So that's the statistical breakdown of what happens there. But hopefully people know, if you don't have to pull the trigger, never pull the trigger, let them run away, because you're not only going to be endangering your life going through the justice system and losing everything, but the lives of all those people who count on you as well. So very important things to kind of keep in mind on that front. So I think that that's a kind of a very quick crash course as far as what I see as a pretty standard breakdown out there in the justice system and all the self-defense calls that we get.
That is enlightening, in some ways relieving, and in other ways horrifying.
Yeah, it's out there. It's definitely out there. Well, should we check on the chicken, see how that's doing?
Yep, I had just put some coals on and moved it around, and now I hear it moving around again. Okay, well, let's see how this chicken looks. And as Paul always reminded us, make sure that you don't get ash in your food. And he talked about his hair getting whiter because of doing maneuvers like this. And that looks really good.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty good.
That is very good. Well, he was definitely right that when you think you have enough margarine, you don't. I have a little bit of cleaning work to do.
A little bit, but not too much.
Not at all.
Not too
How is
much.
that chicken? Is it coming apart? Is it?
It feels pretty done to me. I can I can try pushing one of these
Yeah,
through.
please. Oh, that's done.
Yeah, that's done.
That's overdone. All right, we are in good shape. I'm going to...
I'll take a picture of folks so you can see what we're looking at right here. Lord willing, without dropping the phone in. Although I'm sure someone out there was saying, drop the phone, do it.
Yep.
All
I
right.
am impressed.
Yeah, it actually looks like we know what we're doing when we don't.
Wonderful. I love it when a plan comes together.
Quoting the A-team's never a bad move, you know? For those of us who are old enough to remember that.
There are people who aren't old.
Who'd never watched the A-team, didn't know what they are. I'll introduce you to my kids. Well, then maybe it's my fault for not giving them the A-team. They were stuck with the B-team. Yeah, there's the dad joke kicking in. Well, should we get some plates?
Let's get some plates.
All right, well, I mean, it looks good.
It's plated. It looks good. Let's eat.
Let's see how this turned out.
The carrots are falling apart by themselves. Definitely cooked right.
Yeah, and the chicken's the same way. It's good.
Yep, the chicken is falling apart by it. I was completely wrong. This is not overdone. This is done perfect.
I love it when a plan comes together. So we're calling it audible too. The astute viewers out there may notice that the cornbread's gone. That's because we're almost out of sunlight here, such as it is in northern Wisconsin. So we're going to be cooking with the coyotes if we push that on. So we're letting the cornbread go. We're going to wrap up here with the chicken and then push on to our closing act.
Unfortunate, but it is what it is. And this is pretty good.
If you made it this far, what have you liked? Give us some feedback, because as we already established, we don't really know what we're doing. We're just kind of making this up.
Yep, do not think that we had much forethought or planning into this. The day before yesterday, Tom called me and, hey, we're doing this, right? Yep. What are we doing? And we figured it out on the phone around 9 at night.
Yeah, that was 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then I went grocery shopping yesterday morning. Then I drove up here. And, right, I did some maintenance stuff around here. And then this morning you came over, and here we are.
Here we are.
Behind the camera. How was it, Derek?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I think this worked out.
This, not just this chicken, but this entire video has turned out far better than it has any right to be. And that will be entirely Derek's doing. Don't let him fool you. He makes us look very good. Competent even.
Yeah, it's about 3:30 our time right now. We all ate breakfast at about 7:45.
Give or take.
So this tastes pretty good. That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, there is that whole lack of eating thing, which Paul in his videos even admitted a few times that this is really good, but I haven't eaten since dark 30 this morning.
Well, should we take our last bites of chicken and then we'll flip to our closing act here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, by now you probably could have guessed what the last part is. And if you're looking at the screen, it should be pretty evident as to what the last part is, which is a toast for all of us, to all of us, from all of us, and of course, the Pop-Tarts. So I've actually been saving this bottle. I got this as a gift many years ago. It's 21-year-old Scotch. I've been saving it for something special, and you know, I feel like usually you don't really know what that something special is going to be until you see it. And I feel like this is as good a reason as any to crack open something that's not only legal enough to drink, although that too, but legal enough to buy handguns. Though hopefully that will change soon, and hopefully we will see that law come away.
And in honor of Paul's caveats, yeah buts, and disclaimers, no, our pistols are put away. We're not drinking and carrying guns.
Yes, very true.
Because somebody, somewhere, will holler.
So again, this is, for Mike and I, we were very fortunate to have met Paul before he passed. We're very grateful for that opportunity, the opportunity to meet Roy, his brother, and other members of his friend circle and family. We're also very fortunate to, frankly, be in our position and be able to talk down this lens and be able to have this, I don't know really what you call it, but this adventure that we're all on. And for us, it happens on this side of the camera, but you're on an adventure too on your side of the camera. And we're all riding the same bus called Earth, called the United States, called Northern Wisconsin maybe. And we just got to make this the best ride possible. But look, to Paul, cheers.
Cheers. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
For Paul.
Yep.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. And hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully it was a great way to pass your Thanksgiving. I know that coming from myself, Mike, Derek behind the camera, we all had, I think, a fun time putting this together. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.